Welcome to the World Kitchen. As a church, we are excited to offer this program, and we really hope that it's an opportunity for us to not only learn about another country, but it's an opportunity to cook together in the kitchen, and then also to hear a little bit about what the Presbyterian Church USA is doing around the world. And so we look forward to sharing these next 9 months in the World Kitchen. A funny thing, when we were thinking about the name, we thought World Kitchen, maybe World Table, but then we realized that not everybody who we're going to be cooking from their country actually has a table. And so we're really joining around the world people who cook in many different ways. So would you join your hearts with mine in prayer? God, we thank you for the opportunity, even during a time like this, to gather together, to cook, and to learn more about your work in the world. I pray that as we cook and as we learn, that we would be drawn to others, and that we would lift them in prayer, and that we would think about what you're doing in the world through the Presbyterian Church. Thank you for this gift. In Jesus' name.
Hi, I'm Dave Kurzma, and I'm a member of First Presbyterian Church's Mission and Social Action Team. Also, I have had the opportunity to be on a couple of mission trips to Haiti, so I was excited to be offered the opportunity to introduce and talk about some other mission work that the Presbyterian Church is doing in Haiti. So this month we heard from Cindy Carell, a mission co-worker serving in Haiti since May of 2013. Cindy accompanies leaders and members of community organizations across the country. The network organizations is called Hand to Hand Foundation in Haiti, or by its Haitian Creole name, Fandama. The Presbyterian Hunger Program supports Fandama and similar grassroots organization networks in several other countries. As you can imagine, heightened political and security issues, tropical weather, and coping with COVID-19 have intensified the struggles for the very poor in Haiti. Finding food, medical care, clean water, and security for rising criminal activity are more and more difficult. Fandema members work together to support their neighbors and as a network carry out advocacy campaigns to tackle the root causes of Haiti's poverty. They have determined those causes to be effects of climate change, food imports, and land grabbing. Cindy's primary role is serving alongside the network coordinator, Fabian Jean, and sharing stories and photos connecting Fandama with Presbyterian congregations in the U.S., and especially sharing the many ways the people of Haiti, even while dealing with the misery of deep poverty, gladly and faithfully share with love of the Lord and the Gospels. During the pandemic, Cindy has returned to Virginia and continues her work remotely. She says, "I am called to this service by God, and it is a great joy of my life." Our thanks to Cindy for sharing about her work in Haiti, supported by PCUSA.
Hello, I'm Bev Rustin, a member of First Presbyterian Church, and I have had the good fortune to travel to Haiti as part of the Haiti mission team from First Presbyterian 10 different times. The first year was 2004, I believe, and then for the following 10 years, with the exception of 1 year when we did not go. So we are here to just talk a little about that experience, and Cindy is going to ask me a few questions to lead us into the discussion.
Okay. Bev, where did you go in Haiti, and why did you go there?
Well, as I said, I went as part of the medical mission team from First Presbyterian. We worked with an organization in Haiti that's worked there for, I believe, a good 30 years, Harvest International. And they picked the locations. We went to remote communities. The first year and the last 3 years, those communities were in the mountains. The 6 years in the middle, we went to a coastal village, and there we had a portable, mobile clinic that we set up for about a week at a time. and to serve the people in that community.
Great. What surprised you about Haiti?
Well, as I think about that, the surprise was that I had anticipated a certain amount of resentment from the people of Haiti. Here we were, these do-gooders from a first world country coming into their community and to what? Fix them or to show them a better way of life or whatever. And I thought that there may be some resentment for our being there, for who we are and why we were there. And I sensed none of that. I don't know whether I missed it, but I just don't think it was there. What I did see was a lot of welcome, a lot of excitement, a whole lot of curiosity. Um, we brought to their little communities a real sense of gaiety, almost a party atmosphere where people gathered, got together, and the children played. I do think they perhaps were daring each other to come close and touch us or talk to us. But it was not a sense of standoffishness at all. It was a true welcome. It was a good atmosphere to be in.
So, what kind of insights, Bev, into the country and the Haitian cultures did you gain?
Well, if I can tell you a story, while we were in Haiti, we had our clinic supplies in this rather open area. There weren't locked doors or anything. So the deacons of the church stayed up all night and they guarded us as well as our medications and clinic supplies through the night. And one morning I got up early. One of the deacons was standing outside where we had been sleeping, and I asked him, "What did you do all night out here by yourself?" And he looked at me and he said, "I've been looking at the stars and thinking of how wonderful it is that in this whole huge world you have come here to our little community." Um, and as I pondered this Haitian farmer philosopher, I thought what a privilege it is to be able to make these trips, to get in conversations such as that one, to be in community with these folks for a short amount of time. But as a result of that great privilege we have of traveling, I think we are called upon to learn from it and grow and appreciate the vastness and the diversity of God's creation, His people and the lands, and just that we're able to experience them and to visit them. It is truly, truly a privilege.
Well, thank you. And one last question: did you have a favorite food while you were there?
Well, I don't know if you classify it as a food exactly, but I certainly remember the coffee. The coffee was marvelous. And it wasn't easily made, like nothing is easily made there, as the women gather, 10 or 12 of them together from early morning till late at night to cook for us. The coffee, you could hear them pounding the coffee beans in a big mortar and pestle, which then they boiled it over the open fire, and then they poured it through what certainly looked like a sock to strain it, but it was the most wonderful coffee. And the coffee and all the food, they made it a social event, just the cooking for us. Again, it was that atmosphere of great welcome that went with our time.
Make Haitian red beans and rice. This is the national dish of Haiti. If you go online, you'll find 15 or 16 different recipes for Haitian red beans and rice. But this is the one we're going to be using now. So you begin with half a cup of beans, and you can use red beans, black beans, pinto beans, whatever beans. These are red beans. They work very nicely. You put those in a large pot along with 4 cups of water. That seems like a lot of water, but we're going to be reserving and using that water later on to cook the rice. So you do want to use a full 4 cups of water. I'm going to put not quite a tablespoon of olive oil and a short teaspoon of salt in there. And then we can put this on the stove and bring it to a boil and let it not boil necessarily, but a good simmer, bubbling simmer for an hour, sometimes a little more than an hour, depending upon the beans. Now that the beans have been cooked, and you can test a bean to make certain it is not mushy, but no longer hard, edible. And then once those beans are done, you strain them, and we're going to be using this water. So strain them into a container. Hopefully I won't spill too much or splash too much. And you should have, when they're strained, you should have approximately 3 cups of water left. So, and this is very close to the 3 cups of water. So that's what you're going to use to cook the rice in. We saute onion, pepper, and garlic in about a half tablespoon of olive oil. So we'll have a little olive oil in here. Oops, I was a little generous there. And to that we add a small or medium-sized onion that's been chopped up. There we go. And a red pepper. You can use green pepper, yellow pepper, any color pepper really is fine. But these are bell peppers. And garlic. 1 clove of garlic, or if you really like garlic like I do, you can add a little bit more. And this you saute for just a couple of minutes till it starts softening up a bit. Now that the onion and garlic and pepper are sauteed, you can go to the next step, which is to add the beans that you have cooked and drained. And the recipe calls for chicken bouillon, about a teaspoon, 1½ cubes, but I have chicken flavored soup base, and it's easier to measure, especially when you're doing 1½. So that's about 1½ teaspoons. You can measure more carefully than I did if you'd like. And a half a cup of coconut milk. And then you stir this up really well. Mix these items together carefully until it's thoroughly mixed. And then you add just about 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/4 of a teaspoon of cloves. And the cloves are one of the items in the Haitian beans and rice that perhaps if you've made beans and rice, hadn't thought of adding. Next, we add that water that we reserved when we drained the beans. So this is that bean water. We add that, mix that up, and then you put it back on the burner and bring this all to a boil. Now that the beans and other ingredients are boiling nicely, we will add the rice, 1½ cup of rice, and also a little cayenne pepper. And this you can adjust according to your taste preference. I have probably an eighth of a teaspoon here of cayenne pepper that I'm putting in here. And then we will allow this to continue to just slowly boil for about 20 minutes. The final step, this has been simmering for 20 minutes or so, and as you can see, there's just a little extra water left, not a lot. So now we add a little bit of butter, and this is fresh thyme that I'm adding. I'm just getting it off the stick. And again, you can use, if you really like thyme, you can use more. If you don't like thyme, you can use less, but you do want to put some thyme in. And then you stir that up. And then you can put this back on the burner, put the lid on until the water's absorbed. It would probably be about 10 minutes, and then it is done. And now we can see that the water is absorbed. So it is done. All we need to do is serve it. We have a bowl here. And there you have the Haitian rice and beans. This is a recipe that we'll be serving four to six generously. So I think you'll have plenty as a side dish. And bon manger.